Welcome to this explainer. Okay, we're jumping right into a high-stakes 30-day experiment that is literally unfolding as we speak. We are tracking a real-world test to figure out exactly how AI scales startup execution, specifically for a single founder. We're going to break down the systems, the completely surprising failures, and the brilliant breakthroughs of trying to orchestrate an entire product launch using AI. Let's just tackle this incredibly seductive idea head-on. We see it everywhere online right now. Can you, just one single founder, team up with a powerful AI model and essentially replace a whole startup team? Like, can you actually execute across strategy, engineering, marketing, and operations without just completely collapsing under the weight of it all? The catalyst for everything we're looking at today comes down to a really specific number, 9,500 rupees. Picture this. It's July 20, 2026. The founder behind an emerging ecosystem called the Internet of Value was right in the thick of preparing for a massive public launch. And suddenly, bam, they hit their ChatGPT and Codex usage limits. Engineering just stopped dead in its tracks. So the founder faces a super mundane but critical choice. Spend about 9,500 rupees to upgrade to a ChatGPT Pro subscription for the month. Now, for a bootstrapped founder, you know that's not just software money. That's travel, that's printing, that's personal runway. Upgrading couldn't just be for convenience. The big question became, would spending this money buy a controlled experiment in a totally new form of organization? Section 1. Myth versus reality. Replacing the team. Look, the whole idea of one human just seamlessly replacing a team, it's a massive exaggeration. And AI is not some autonomous employee quietly running your company in the background while you sleep. Why? Well, because it can't sign contracts, it can't assume fiduciary responsibility, it certainly can't walk into a tough meeting to build trust, and crucially, it absolutely cannot take the moral blame for a bad decision. It gives you operating capacity, sure, but it has to be heavily directed and governed by a human. Think about a conventional setup. Workflows are built around humans, right? And AI is just kind of pasted on top as a polishing tool, like asking it to quickly debug some code or rewrite an email. But an AI-native organization is built entirely from scratch. You distribute the actual execution to the models, while you, the human founder, concentrate entirely on ethics, context, and those irreversible judgments. So it's not human-free. It is intensely human-concentrated. Which brings us to Section 2, the first mistake. Output isn't capacity. So as the founders started using AI as a chief of staff, an engineer, and a marketer, they hit a massive wall. It turns out output does not equal progress. AI can instantly spit out 100 campaign ideas or pages of software architecture, but without a strict review system, you were just drowning in plausible-looking digital confetti. The bottleneck just shifted. It went from creating the content to the exhausting human labor of actually evaluating it all. To fix this crippling bottleneck of reviewing endless AI content, the founder needed a brutal filter. They needed something much stronger than just measuring productivity. So they established a new North Star: validated demand. A gorgeous dashboard or a perfectly written book chapter, that is in progress until it forces someone outside the system to actually make a commitment. We're talking about a book purchase, a registered ticket, a paid deposit, or a real institutional partnership. If the AI's output doesn't create a credible pathway to that validated demand, it's honestly just busy work. Moving right along to Section 3, the second mistake: too many controls. Now, here's a fascinating failure. When you ask an AI to help build an operating system, it naturally engineers these beautiful best practice structures. But for a solo founder, this instantly reproduces the massive coordination overhead of like a 50-person team. It creates competing versions of reality, forcing the founder to update 4 different spreadsheets just to track one single task. Suddenly, you're spending way more time managing the AI's paperwork than actually building the product. So the big takeaway here is this governing principle. You have to build a minimum viable organization, not a best practice simulation of one. You really don't need the perfectly documented software repository of a mature engineering team. You just need the absolute smallest system that reduces your execution friction. That leads us to Section 4, the breakthrough: 3 kinds of truth. Think about how most productivity systems work. They just kind of blur everything together. You take a box, and the system assumes the work is done and that it's actually valuable. But this founder realized you absolutely have to separate facts into 3 distinct buckets. Intention is your plan. Reality is the activity you actually performed. An outcome is a validated campaign event. I mean, think about it. Planning to write a book is very different from actually writing it, and writing it is completely different from actually selling a copy. Section 5, the AI Protocol Orchestrator. So instead of endlessly clicking through some complex project management dashboard, the primary interface here is just a natural conversation. At the end of the day, the founder just speaks to the AI. The AI listens, reconstructs the narrative, and then guides the founder through this exact, incredibly strict daily loop. It proposes the activities you did, asks for your explicit approval, then asks if any actual campaign movements happened, gets your approval for that, and finally it structures a schedule for tomorrow, requiring a final sign-off. And here is the absolutely crucial point. One yes cannot authorize three kinds of facts. The AI does not just bulk update your whole life in one go. It forces explicit, separate approvals. The custom GPT isn't acting as a single source of truth. Instead, it's a strict mediator protecting the boundaries between your plans, your actions, and your actual financial or institutional results. All of this meticulously separated data then feeds into a completely redesigned Today page. When the founder opens their laptop, the page doesn't ask them for any data entry. It simply answers the question, where am I now? It projects exactly what has been explicitly approved: the current active block of time, the remaining schedule, and a super compact overlay showing real validated demand, stuff like confirmed revenue and registrations. There are no strategic meetings disguised as progress here, just cold, hard, approved facts. Section 6. 3 institutions observing one founder. What's really wild here is that a single hour of work is evaluated across 3 distinct institutions without ever double counting tasks. You have House of Bros tracking the physiological and emotional toll on the founder, because hey, peak performance isn't free. Then Growth Flow Engineering tracks the operational execution and the actual work shipped. And finally, the Internet of Value Research Foundation evaluates institutional stewardship. One validated activity feeds all these views, making sure the founder isn't secretly burning out while the system just looks productive on paper. Finally, Section 7, the ultimate launch test. All right, so here is the ticking clock. Those AI limits were reached on July 20th. This triggered the entire 30-day experiment we're talking about, which leads directly to August 15th, the public launch of the Independence Dialogues in Bangalore. This isn't just launching a simple app. We're talking about publishing 4 book volumes, organizing 3 in-person venue events, demonstrating software, and managing marketing campaigns. It absolutely forces this AI-native system out of the theoretical realm to handle strategy, technology, and messy human relationships simultaneously under massive, massive pressure. Over this critical window, the experiment is generating rigorous, measurable evidence across all these categories. And the founder is fully embracing the risk of failure here. I mean, maybe people admire the AI's work but flat out refuse to pay. Maybe the AI creates way more review labor than it actually saves. Or maybe, most dangerously, the intense 30-day campaign severely damages the well-being of the sole human trying to orchestrate the whole shebang. They are literally measuring everything from product bugs to human physiological emotion and publishing the record as it happens. So I leave you with this final thought to track as this remarkable experiment concludes. The founder paid 9,500 rupees for a subscription. Now we know for sure that money bought raw computing power. But will this radical protocol, these conversational daily loops, and these strict boundaries prove that a solo founder can effectively orchestrate an entire enterprise without losing their mind? Ultimately, does AI actually buy organizational capacity? That is the $1,000,000, or I guess 9,500 rupee question. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and stay intensely curious.